And joining us now is Simon Rosenberg, longtime Democratic strategist and president of the New Democrat Network and New Policy Institute. Simon, thank you for joining us once again tonight. You, of course, as my audience knows, our audience knows, was the person who never fell for the red wave propaganda, I think we could now call it, that was out there. And you were not surprised by the way the election turned out. What are the lessons learned for you in this election?
Well, I think the most important thing is the Democratic Party is very strong today. I mean, we strengthened our standing in the key battleground states for the presidential election next time. We showed tactical advantages. I thought Senator Peters did a great job at explaining why what we did on the ground and these heavily our campaigns are much bigger than they used to be, Lawrence, right? We had much more money. And we're spending it wisely, right, by focusing on turning out lower propensity voters and creating more Democrats with that money. You heard him talk about how we pushed the early vote. And that was and the Republicans just won't be able to catch up with us in the next 2 years on the ground. And then the third thing is that the party itself, when you look up and down from Gretchen Whitmer to Gavin Newsom to Wes Moore to Raphael Warnock, I mean, you and I have been doing this a long time. This is as strong a party as we've probably seen in our lifetime. And so I come away from this election thinking the Democratic Party is really strong and the Republicans still are all full of MAGA. And they've got a big problem heading into 2024. Republicans are, I think, going to have a very difficult time shaking their connection to MAGA. I mean, you've just seen it in the last few weeks. And what it means for them is that, we're going to be even stronger probably in 2024 than we were in 2020. And they're going to have 3 consecutive elections now where people haven't voted for them because they're too crazy. And so there's going to be that muscle memory of like, well, have they really changed? And I think there's going to be a very high bar for many voters to believe that somehow this isn't the same old MAGA party that they voted against in the last 3 elections.
Ladies and gentlemen, if that is not one of the most brain-dead segments I have ever seen, just look at this guy on the right, this quote-unquote Democratic strategist. I mean, not to be juvenile and trivial, but does the guy not look like a buffoon? I don't know, his hairdo, is he using some kind of filter like I think women use online to make his skin look like that? Like, he just looks dopey. Now, I know that completely lacks any substance at all, but am I wrong? Am I wrong? I shouldn't focus on his looks, but don't you agree? Just look at him. Just look at him. Anyway, there's so much wrong with what he said. I mean, the last thing he mentioned about how this voter muscle memory, I mean, it's almost as if he was born yesterday. The idea of voters in this country having any memory whatsoever is absolutely absurd. The idea that voters in this country can remember what even happened 4 months ago is absurd, right? The idea that voters in this country don't simply react with emotion in the moment at the time of the election without much benefit of historical context. Like as if that hasn't been the thing in this country just basically forever. I mean, how many played out scams have we seen in the past that continue to work, right? I'm the outsider. I'm not a politician. I'm an outsider, right? Vote for me, right? We've seen that same trick played time and time and time again, and it still continues to work. The last time it worked, Donald J. Trump. But he was absolutely not the first. That's an old trick. Then the other trick about, mail-in ballots are dangerous. Ooh, they're gonna steal the election. This is a decades-old, played-out political game. Last time around, it was the Republicans who benefited from mail-in voting. So it was the Democrats who were crying about mail-in voting, it's scam and this and that and whatever. And here we are, yet again, an old trick played again like as if it's a new trick. Voters just don't get it. They fall for it, right? Of course, when I say voters, I'm referring to the target voters that the scams are targeted at, right? The scam of Democrats making big promises, running as progressives, governing as conservatives. I mean, that's the oldest trick in the book for Democrats, right? The excuse party. When they have the supermajority, somehow things just aren't getting done. When they have thin margins, of course they keep crying that they have thin margins and you need to vote for more of them. But the more that you vote for them, the more of them get in power. It doesn't seem to have any effect on what they're doing. I mean, do we have any historical context where the amount of things Democrats do matches the proportion of their majority? So as you get a bigger and bigger majority, they're doing more and more. As the majority gets thinner and thinner, they get lesser and lesser. Can someone show me a graph that shows this behavior? Because it seems to me, the more of them you vote in power, somehow they just find excuses for why they can't do anything. It's not as simple as you think, and you don't understand how this works, and there's things behind the scenes, and not this time, the next time. You know, there's things we're working on. Always excuses. But yet they continue to do it. Democrats will again run on progressive stuff. Once again, the voters will fall for it. Then once they get in power, they will not do what they promised to do. And yet they won't really get burned. They can keep doing this over and over and over again. But the dumbest thing of this segment is the idea, and listen to me very clearly, the idea that the lesson learned from the Democrats barely winning against an absolute moron like Herschel Walker, scraping through against Herschel Walker, the fact that Dr. Oz, the fraud who many conservatives don't even like, the fact that he even had a chance to win, right? The fact that Boebert almost won. Well, she won, I guess. She won in the end, right? These races were super, super tight. But yet the candidates in the Republican Party were horrible, right? Not all of them, but I'm saying there were many races against horrible Republican candidates where the Democrat barely won. How on earth is the lesson from this that the Democrats are strong? I mean, this is the equivalent of me being in some kind of intellectual competition against someone with a severe mental illness, and I barely win, and yet I'm doing a victory dance, and yes, I'm really good, yeah, and the reason why I won is because I work really hard, and it's my strategy, and you know, I really put a lot of time and effort in. Bro, you barely won versus someone with a severe mental illness. That is not something to celebrate. That's something to be embarrassed about. That's something to reflect on. Because if you don't, the next time you're in a competition and the competitor is not mentally ill, you're going to be demolished. Again, if the Democrats barely scrape through against somebody as horrible as Herschel Walker, what happens if the Republicans simply present someone who is not an absolute disaster? Not a good candidate at all. I'm just saying someone that's not a complete disaster. They can at least speak. They at least don't have 101 scandals. They at least don't have a single-digit IQ. Again, let's use logic. If the Democrats barely scrape through against someone like Herschel Walker, logically they don't stand a chance against just someone who is a normal functioning person on the Republican ticket. But this is the message you're getting from MSNBC. This is the message that they're promoting to their viewers. the fact that Democrats are strong and the reason they won is because they're so great, and no topic, no discussion at all about how close these wackos came to winning. What's the effect of that going to be in the next election? If you're pushing this message about how great they're doing, keep doing what you're doing. The thing that allowed you to barely beat an absolute disaster, keep doing that. That makes a lot of sense. This makes it extremely easy for Republicans to absolutely destroy the Democrats. Again, simply having candidates that are not mentally ill should be enough for an absolute massive red wave. That's the lesson that I get, because my analysis is based on logic and facts, not on feelings or an intentional desire to mislead. This guy is a Democratic strategist, after all, which makes you wonder, why was he brought on in the first place? And why is this guy from MSNBC giving him so much praises, how great he is, and he's your source of information, and, you know, thank you so much for all your work? Why is he giving this guy such praises? And yet, as a journalist, in this interview, he didn't push back on anything. He didn't bring up any. But wait a minute, what about the Herschel Walker thing? Nothing at all. He brings the guy on, allows the guy to just keep saying strong, strong, Democrats are strong, Democrats are strong, they're strong, they're strong. An argument based on nothing. And he's just nodding his head, yes, 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 they're strong, they're strong. This is propaganda. And it's disgusting. Not like what you see in partisan independent media, which is far worse than this. But this is still disgusting. And this is the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.